Welcome back to the channel's Super Academico and Blue Eye Patch. Let us keep the reading of my book Clueders, Meire Pop Beyond the Cloud, available on Amazon. In this part, we will finish the reading of the Chapter 6, a reminder of the future, games, books, and digital life. Don't forget to subscribe to both channels and like and share the video. Let's go! I must admit that this third match was much more interesting than the previous two. Leandro's team of friends were also focused, but the components seemed more relaxed. The setting of the game was a mix of urban territory with jungle and desert. Everything happened in a post-apocalyptic future in which what remained of society were independent tribes, but which had inherited every high-tech domain of the past ours. Only this context as a background story was in itself more interesting because it had a very familiar theme of the films, literature, and games that I also dealt with in my blog. But in addition, the game itself depended on a lot more strategy and vision than the previous two, which ended up just being spectacles of fights and deaths. Each player commanded a tribe. The objective of the game was not simply the destruction of an enemy. Each player had to lead their tribe to gain the trust of neighboring tribes, using any methods: intimidation, persuasion, bribery, diplomacy, etc. Simply attacking the neighboring tribes and annexing the territory weakened the side, as they were less fighters for the real war against the opposite side, the other tribes. And even so, it was as one of the secondary objectives to have the minimum of casualties on the loser side. Thus, the dynamics of the game was much less explosive because it depended on agreements, concessions, secret and melee fighting, and finally armed struggles as a last resort. This third match I could watch like a movie, attracting much more interest from the viewers, and with each new move everything could change. At the end of the game, the competing gamers of the Mello team managed to form stronger alliances among their tribes and conquered the side of Leandro's friends. Players had to be attentive to the resources available in each tribe at all times: technology, staff with skills, food, and energy. Some fights were even bloody and had many casualties, but in the end the achievement was greater than the loss of points and they won. End of the game. It was no surprise to me that Mello's team had won. After all, he had been an architect and scriptwriter of the game, and as a sponsor of the team, they had all the advantages. I figured out how legal this was in the rules of online gaming. We're back together. Mello kept his equipment while those in the room settled for a new match later after lunch. We certainly would not be there. Leandro greeted the teacher for the victory, while Marcos showed great admiration for his Uncle Mello. Meire. Uncle Mello followed the whole game, without the graphical interface. It was all in code on his laptop. Wow, how cool. You are certainly very talented. That's nothing, my dear. It's just years of addiction and plenty of free time for a lonely man. I was still looking at every word of the man with suspicion.
We said goodbye.
I kissed Marcos on the cheek, and he and Leandro shook their hands, still with the tension of a cockfight. For two guys so physically alike, they still did not see themselves as alike. It must be my fault. Note, I promised myself that I would still solve that situation of those two. Professor Mello shook my hand and said, "Until our next tragic failure, Meire Pop," and he gave that superior smile. We left for opposing sides of the convention center. Annoyed, I spent the rest of Saturday and Sunday avoiding access to the internet. I knew that something in the cloud would give continuity to the climate of conspiracy that Professor Mello could always impose on my life. It was strange that someone I had just met had this power. Evidently, it must have been because he knew me much more than I did him. Finally, I got up and turned on the computer. My blog had been re-accessed and had a new post that left me creepy again. Meire Pop, the time is coming for you to make the decision. The moment of uncertainty is like that game of Saturday. The tribes can unite to conquer or to destroy. The choice is yours. Anonymous. It was quite imperative and yet frightening. Who else would have the hacker skills to do that post besides Mello? But still, the message did not look like him. It was a warning and not a threat. This time, I did not even have to change my password again. It seemed to be very easy to find it after all. It was past 11 at night, and I decided that I would not make any decision at that moment. Even though I was on vacation and I didn't have to wake up early on Monday, I went to sleep. It was the best thing to do after such a confusing and disturbing weekend. Note, not to think I was all alone and sulky all the rest of the weekend. I still went out with my parents and Leandro on Sunday morning, but everyone noticed that I was a little bland for things. Of course, that night I had a dream full of meanings. The beginning seemed like others and also similar to the ones Marcos had described to me. Sitting in a dark room with a screen in front of me. On the screen a video like on YouTube began loading, with circle of dots and everything else, spinning before starting. Finally it began. It was me, but I seemed older. I was sitting in what looked like an office or lab with shelves, books, and computers. The light was faint, but everything was clearly visible. She said, I hope this message arrives in time in your subconscious. At this moment the future is in your hands. Be careful about the decisions you make. The cloud is the life of the future, and the future is already in the cloud. But the present is in your hands, beyond the cloud. Note, why are these messages always puzzling? Could not they be more direct about what I should or should not do?
I hope you have enjoyed this reading. Continuing to support the channel's Super Academico and Blue Eye Patch. Subscribe, like and share the video. Bye-bye.